A cozy little club of Ontario Liberal insiders have been paid millions in taxpayer-funded contracts. This is according to a review by the Globe and Mail. The review follows a criminal investigation that showed over $100,000 in public funds were paid to the boyfriend of Dalton McGuinty's deputy chief of staff. He allegedly destroyed government records relating to the cancelled natural gas-fired power plants. Candice Malcolm, the Ontario director for the Canadian Taxpayers Foundation, joins us with more. Candice, it seems like anytime you're setting up secret accounts or numbered companies or splitting fees with your spouse, that's a sign of shenanigans afoot. It's not a surprise from the Liberal government, but this is bigger than I thought.
Absolutely, Ezra. It doesn't pass the smell test whatsoever. And it was quite a devastating headline this morning in the Globe and Mail. Liberal Party insiders getting millions of dollars in secret deals. And that's exactly what it was. This is something that goes through the party caucus funds. So every party in the Ontario legislature gets a fund that they get to spend, allocate how they wish. And the Liberals, it's been exposed, have been giving those contracts and sending that money out to party staff, to staffers of Dalton McGuinty, to people who worked inside the Premier's office, to shell companies, and they're getting basically top-ups to their salaries in taxpayer-funded funds that was entirely untransparent to the taxpayers, to the public. It wasn't until this police probe and the investigative journalism at the Globe and Mail that all of this came to the surface today.
Yeah, I mean, I have some experience. About 15 years ago or so, I worked on Parliament Hill for a couple of years, and I discovered there were rules. For example, an MP could not hire their spouse or their kid. I mean, there were obvious rules. You don't feather your nest that way. But my reading of this Globe and Mail story, and kudos to Adam Radwanski for doing it, because he's sort of from the Liberal tribe, and he blew the whistle on him. Good for him for doing that. I mean, for the Liberals to cut a check to someone's spouse to sort of, make it harder to detect just how much dough was going to one family unit. When you start doing accounting tricks like that, that shows your culture is take as much dough as you can, hide your tracks as much as you can, and push the rule. I'm not saying there was a crime here, I don't know, but by God, they pushed the rules to the limit, didn't they?
Well, exactly, Ezra. When it comes to conflict of interest and all these different rules, freedom of information, they just don't apply to these caucus funds. So, maybe they are legitimate. Maybe these people were doing extra work and it all falls under what is considered legal. But it really makes you wonder, why was it set up like this in the first place? The Privacy Commissioner has no jurisdiction over this area whatsoever. So we don't know whether conflict of interest or, we can't access it through freedom of information just because of the way that the rules are set up. So whether or not it was legal or not, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it proper that taxpayers should be funding these kind of inside secret deals. Anything under $50,000 doesn't need to be disclosed at all. Everything above it, we don't know exactly what the services are. We just know who it's going to. So finding out that, the chief of staff or a strategist of Dalton McGuinty was getting extra money shelled over or through his wife's company, whatever. It's really shocking to taxpayers in Ontario to realize what it is that they're funding. And, it has a lot of people really outraged. It's not surprising given the record of Dalton McGuinty, and his brood and all of the scandals that have come up, but really it's devastating that millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars are going to these political contracts.
You know what? It reminds me of the story in Alberta. You had Alison Redford who quit, and the rest of the PCs are saying, oh, all the bad stuff was under her watch. We're crystal clear right now. There's no shenanigans anymore. We didn't know anything about it. And here's my point. Dalton McGuinty, a lot of this was on his watch, but Kathleen Wynne was a senior cabinet minister, the campaign re-election co-chair. How many of these staffers using these hidden payment schemes continue to work for Kathleen Wynne? And the reason I ask is because I know the standard operating procedure of the Liberal Party is going to say, oh, that was all under Dalton McGuinty's watch. Kathleen Wynne is clean as the pure as a driven snow. How many of these shenanigans are still going on with her approval? Do you know, Candace?
Well, you know, it's a really great point and a great question because, you know, the rules haven't changed. The same system, the same party bureau fund still exists. So, you know, everyone says there's nothing wrong or illegal with this, other than the fact that the public, you know, doesn't want their money to be spent this way. There's still a lot of crossover. You're right. Premier Wynne was part of Dalton McGuinty's caucus. She was a senior cabinet minister and part of the election co-chair team. So you know, a lot of the people who were there under McGuinty, they're not all the same, but certainly a lot of the staff is still around, and who knows what more contracts. You know, all this stuff is coming up over a decade of contracts under Dalton McGuinty. Who knows what's still going on today?
Yeah, well, I tell you, Candace, I thank you. You Taxpayers Federation guys and gals are the best thing out there in Alberta, in Ontario, federally. You are the trustworthy watchdogs, sometimes even better than official opposition parties, watching out for our hard-earned taxpayers. Thanks very much for doing it, and you keep their feet to the fire, okay?
Thank you, Ezra. I will.
See you later, Candace.